1.2.3. For those of you who don't know me, my name's David and I'm the minister here, and we meet every Sunday for point 123. Point 1 is our children's programme at 4, point 2 is our meal, which is at 4:45, and point 3 is our 5:30 session. And today, point 1, point 2 and point 3 have all been done by Eleanor. And the team in the kitchen, so they have done a children's session and we have eaten authentic Tanzanian meal. Oh, yes, which was very tasty, and some of them are still eating it, so if you mind a bit more, I don't know if there's a... Yeah, you carry on doing. Right, but now, with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to my daughter Eleanor, who is back from Tanzania, and she's going to lead point 3.
So, yes, hello, I'm Eleanor, if you didn't know that. I've been in Tanzania for 3 months, between March and June. I went with 3 other girls from the UK. We've got, so that's me on that end, hopefully you can do the same resemblance. Then there's Ellie from Sheffield, Zoe from London area, and Rebecca from Essex. We went with a charity called Tear Fund. I don't know if you've heard of them. They do a lot of work in the UK and in other countries. So they did trips similar to ours to Malawi, to Cambodia, to Bangladesh, to Zambia. That might be it. But that kind of thing. So if we go to the next slide, please. So this is the map of the world. As you can see, we went from London Heathrow, I can't quite reach Pogo, and we flew to Nairobi in Kenya, then on to Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, before landing in Mwanza in Tanzania, which is right there, up by Lake Victoria. So that was all plane journey, about kind of from London to the door when we landed, about 24 hours, kind of 8 hours, 3 hours. And then it's a 3-hour car journey from Mwanza to Gator, which is that red dot right there. And that was, you go on a ferry over Lake Victoria and then drive the rest of the way. It is Mwanza's kind of like the Newcastle, the Gator kind of like the Hexham, just on a bigger distance scale. And as Vinny pointed out earlier, it does not have an all-you-can-eat buffet in Mwanza, as far as I know. So in that comparison, I'm sorry, it's not that. If we go to the next slide, please. So I thought I would do some Swahili with you guys. Swahili is the main language spoken in Tanzania. They do also have what they call their mother tongue, which is the tribal language. So around where we were, that is Sukuma. I can't remember any of the other tribes, but Sukuma is the big tribe around us. They also speak English pretty well. So some people will speak English, Swahili, and Sukuma very fluently. Some people will only be able to speak Sukuma. But Swahili is the general, most people can converse in that. So anyway, so Asante, if you were here before, if you hold back, if you weren't here, if you have any guesses, I'll tell you, Swahili is based, it's got French, English, Arabic, and I think Bantu, which is a tribal language, in its kind of all mixed together. So if you have any ideas, you're welcome to. Oh, thanks, Jordan. Would you like to tell us all?
Thank you.
It's thank you, which I think, in my mind, French Santé is kind of health, good health, thank you, vaguely similar. So you'd say, Asante, thank you very much. The next one is Pole. It looks like pole, but we pronounce it kind of Pole. Any ideas? Yes, Dan?
Chicken.
It is not chicken. Well, yes, Tim, you tell.
Is it sorry?
It is, good guess, it is sorry. So the first couple of days we were there, one of our group was pretty sick. We don't really know why, but she was pretty sick, and everyone would go around saying, poorly, poorly, and she'd go, yes, because it sounds like she's poorly, but it actually means sorry. So next one, please. Then we have Endio.
Sad.
No.
Hi. Hello.
No, I've got that one on the slide now. You'll be ready. It means yes. So you say Endio, yes. Hapana, if Endio is yes, Hapana is no. Very good. Then we have sawa. Sawa is okay, so kind of in response to how are you? I'm okay, or okay, that, you know, however we use it. Next one, we've got karibu. Karibu is you're welcome, or you are welcome. And they'll use it as a, you are welcome to be here, or you're welcome for the food I gave you, kind of thing. So, in both ways. Kwaheri, goodbye. They didn't seem to say goodbye very much, but you'd say kwaheri to say goodbye. Then we have Bwana Yesu asifiwe.
Hello.
No, that is right on the end of this one then. Any ideas what Yesu is?
Something about Jesus.
Yes. Bwana Yesu asifiwe is praise the Lord. And they say it a lot. So pretty much if you're in church speaking or you stand up to speak, you say that before you start your sentence. It's kind of like you say, and people, so you say, Bwana Yesu asifiwe, and everyone goes, Amina! And it's kind of, you know, it's to get the crowd excited, get them going, and they do get quite excited. So next one, Hakuna Matata. Now, any ideas what Hakuna Matata is? No worries, very good. But actually, so you have different kinds of Swahili. So you have Tanzanian Swahili and Kenyan Swahili, and I imagine others, but I'm not sure. But it's kind of the same way we have American English and English. So they actually say Hakuna Shida. You wouldn't say Hakuna Matata.
If
I don't know.
Hakuna Matata, would they understand me?
They do understand you, but it's kind of wrong. Only in Tanzania, in Kenya you're fine. But kind of, you'd say it.
I know what that's like.
Yeah, like maybe we say aluminium and Americans say aluminum, that kind of thing. It's like, it's just different. Sorry.
Hello.
Yes. So somebody says to you, "Who Jambo?" You respond, "Si Jambo."
Si Jambo.
Oh, sorry, no, that's how do you do. That's not hello. We go to the next one. Habari za jioni. Yes. Now this is hello or good evening, as you change the za or the jioni depending on the time of day. If it's morning, you say habari za asubuhi. If it's lunchtime, you say habari za mchana. I think their time works a little differently. And then in response, you say nzuri, which is good. And that is the only thing you respond. If you're not doing well, you say good. In the way, if someone says, how are you? You go, I'm fine. Yeah, it's kind of like they don't teach you the word for bad because you're not allowed to respond in that way. And their greetings, I would say, normally we'd say hello, how are you? And then you maybe get into your conversations. Theirs are quite a bit longer. So they could say, they'd probably go, habari za jioni, then they'd ask, I can never remember the question, but you respond salama, which is kind of good health. Then they might talk about Jambo, then they might do one about Zuma, so it can be quite a lengthy process. We were kind of taught these things, not necessarily knowing what we were saying, but it's just kind of how they speak. That's good. Did I have anything else on that? No, that's great. Next slide, please. So this is Ebenezer House. This is where we were staying. It is a children's home, which is run by AICT Geita, which is the African Inland Church in Tanzania, in the Geita region, which is where we were staying. And they have 8 kids living there. I think 6, 7. I think most of them are in there.
Who's the forehead?
Oh, that's Zoe. So I think it just cropped her out when I put it in the slideshow. She is there. And they range from about 4 to 5 to about 16. The family unit in Tanzania is much different. And Sarah asked a really good question earlier if they have toys. And they do have some toys. They have quite a lot of games. They had checkers. They had like a kind of spot it game where you 2 cards are the same and you flip them over. They did have dolls, but they kind of showed them to us, but I never saw them playing with them. And I think their culture is very much more, because they spend so much time washing and cleaning and cooking, they don't always have time to play. They do play, and but it's more outside, running around, ball games kind of thing. Yeah, that's great. If we go next. So this is us doing various things with them. We kind of had a separate, I say wing of the house, it was kind of a wing, but we had our rooms and a kitchen and where we cooked for ourselves. So we were able to kind of be just the four of us together, but then we would go and spend time with them. And so we made Easter biscuits with them, which is more biscuits and icing. They weren't we just did them at Easter. That's why they were Easter biscuits. They made us food, which we kind of helped with, but they're, like, these kids, 13, 14 years old, can prepare a full-on meal, which even now I'm not great at. I need like a recipe book and an oven, and know what's going on. And they just know it. They have no recipe book because they've just done it every day of their lives. We had a range of food, so we did a lot of rice, which I still like it though. Some of the others are gone off it a bit. We did rice, pasta, plantain, which if you don't know is a type of banana, but it's a lot more carby and is not sweet. So it's kind of like a roast potato, but I like it a lot, or a chip, that kind of thing. So when we tried to help cook, they'd say, "Would you make the pasta?" So I'd be like, "Ooh, okay, that's fine." And they make it slightly differently. They make it a lot sweeter, the pasta, than we do, which I quite enjoy actually, but it's a bit different. So then this is us. So we played checkers with them. We played lots of games. We taught them a few games. We taught them Splat. We taught them this kind of dancing game, which was really fun. And then again at Easter, we did Easter eggs with them. They a lot of their, they go to school, they come home, they do their homework, they cook dinner, and they go to bed. They might, and so they don't always, they wouldn't maybe colour in or decorate stuff. And so we did this with the school, and then we did it with them, and it was really fun because we were just decorate an egg however you want. You don't have, it can be like a proper Easter egg. You can just draw a picture on, and I think they really enjoyed that. And then that's us shelling peanuts with them, which was nice. I'm not sure if it was because they're working with the church, but almost every night they would do a nightly service just in the house with the kids, and they would sing some songs and then do a little 5-minute sermon and pray, and that was just really nice. Their kind of faith in action, it felt like, every day with these people who really, compared to us, have relatively little, and they were just really happy and really generous. And at the end of our stay, which I think is the next slide, they gave us this, which is called a kanga. And I had really wanted one, but I was like, no, it's okay, I won't buy it. I feel it's like a gift. You can't buy one for yourself, you have to receive it. So I was really happy when they gave it to us. But it's just a piece of cloth. If you can see on the bottom, it's got words, sorry. And I think this one is, we live in peace with God, or we live in the peace of God, something around that. And what you do, you can see from here, they have kind of different colours and patterns. And you'd have several as a woman or girl in Tanzania. They kind of are a bit like a mood ring. They show what mood you're in. So if you're cross with your husband, you put on the kanga, which means you're annoyed. And so, your husband can be like, okay, we'll back off. But they are great. They use they use it like this, and then it's your apron. So they don't really use aprons, they use it like this. You can see this is us making mandazi. You can have it you can make it a bit bigger, so you can make it into more of a kind of covering, like a towel. You can make it into a dress. It kind of cuts off your throat though. But you can do that and tie it at the back, and they normally do that after a shower. You can have it as a shawl or tie it there, and then they also get their babies on their back and have it as a baby carrier. And no babies fell. I was very impressed. But I really, the generosity of all the people, but particularly these people, reminded me of the woman at the temple who gave the 2 copper bronze coins, and Jesus was like, she gave more than all you people who, gave however much of your wealth. If we go to the next slide, please. So this is us at the school. We taught at a primary school run by the church or the diocese. The primary school went from preschool up to 13. We taught from about 8 to 13. We did RE, religious education, PE, music, and vocational studies, which is a little bit like PSHE. We do cooking, sewing, entrepreneurial skills, which we had to look in the book what they were. And the kids were generally really good. They were big classes, so I think our smallest class was like 36, and it was the other 2 were about 40, 45 in a class. And we learned that our teachers do a really good job. It's hard being a teacher. Their level of English was pretty good. It's not their first language, and it's not always their second language. But they did, they were able to understand us, and if they weren't, we got better at talking slower, trying to maybe change it to, oh, they wouldn't know this word, we'll do this instead. If you can put the next slide. So we did icing biscuits with them, and in Tanzania, a lot of the lessons we think are a teacher writes on a blackboard and you copy it down. There's not much kind of, in England, there's quite a lot of creative or problem-solving thoughts of like, what are you going to do? Here's a problem. In there, it's just copy. So when we'd say, can you draw this picture? Or, so like I said, we'd like you to do a storyboard of Jonah. And so I showed an example of a storyboard, and they copied that down and didn't do their own drawings. And so that was a bit of a challenge, but I think sometimes we got through. Our aim was just to provide a fun lesson, and maybe not a lesson when you sit and you look at the board the whole time. We did PE. This is us doing a relay race with bear crawl, which is really hard to do, I can say. But we did a bit of netball with them in PE, quite a lot of relays. At Easter we did an egg and spoon race, but with lemons. We didn't want to use eggs. We did some Bible stories with them. This is Ellie looking over the hills to Jerusalem as Jesus before he rides down on his donkey. And then we also taught at GCC, which was Gator Christian College, and there they train up at an 18 to 21 or 18 plus to be pastors and preachers. We taught English. They asked us to teach philosophy, but we don't really have a background in philosophy or really know anything about it, so we did not do philosophy. Their level of English was very good, and such that we had to kind of do a bit of research of our own, going, ooh, what is the subjunctive clause? How do apostrophes work? So I think my English has actually improved, which is good. Yes. And one thing which shocked us quite a bit, we were talking I think we were doing slang or something, so we were saying, oh, so another name for Father Christmas is Santa Claus. And they don't know who Father Christmas is. They don't have him. Which in some ways, they probably have a much more realistic Christmas. But that did surprise us. That's great. So next slide, please.
Do you mean he's not real?
I can neither confirm or deny. The existence was not in debate, just whether. Anyway, so we also did work in the villages. And the villages are, so if Mwanza is Newcastle, Gator is Hexham, the villages are Stocksfield, Riding Mill, Corbridge, kind of the outer ones, but again, on a further distance. So an hour, 2 hours, we normally wouldn't go further than 2.5 hours. The villages were normally, so Mwanza, they had a cinema, they had lots of stores. Gator, it's a bit smaller, you have 2 stores, a lot of markets. the villages were another step more rural. You often, they didn't really have any water. You probably wouldn't have electricity, at least not mains electricity. You might have a solar panel. And generally they are less educated because they just haven't been able to get to a school because it's a long way away. So we went in and we taught them how to bake a cake, which they went well. It was a bit of a challenge as they had no oven or no scales or no whisk. And so we would have, we did like 12 spoons of sugar, 12 spoons of butter. Ellie did a really good job of baking it. You get a big pot of boiling water, and then you put your cake pan in the pot of boiling water and put a lid on, and then you let it simmer. And I was really impressed with the results, considering I like Bake Off. It was, you know, it was like extreme Bake Off. They have, so in America, instead of saying cling film, you call it saran wrap, right? And that's because it's a brand name. So in Tanzania, you don't call it butter, you call it Blue Band, even if it's not butter. And so the first day, we said, could we have some butter so we can make the cake, please? And they gave us peanut butter. And we were like, oh, not sure how to do this. So we learned from then, you say Blue Band, even if you don't get that brand of butter, you will get butter. And then we also, in the villages, we taught basic sanitation and like really, really basic stuff, like how to wash your hands. So saying, you need to wash the palms, you need to wash your nails, you need to wash in between your hands. And so we were kind of like, is this too simple? Are we just sounding really patronizing, saying you need to wash your hands? But it seemed, and we were also saying you need to use boiled water, or at least you need to start filtering it. And we kind of like, is this too basic? But you go to some villages and you kind of look at the water and you're like, yeah, this isn't, they just don't have the idea of the bacteria. And so we talked about bacteria and how that can get in you and how that's bad for you. And of course, as when you give anybody advice, some people respond and some people don't. So in some places, we would stay for lunch and we would have hot water to wash our hands with. And that was really rewarding because we were like, yes, they've listened, they've gotten what they need to do. Whether they do it forever, I don't know, but it's a change in the right direction. We would stay for lunch, which was very nice because then we didn't have to cook lunch. And they would make us rice and meat. We were really happy with rice and beans because we really liked that, but they were very nice and gave us rice and meat. And rice is actually a real kind of a special treat in some of the villages. Because to us, it is a very basic food staple, I would say. But not so much in Geita, but in the villages, it is quite a special treat. The basic carb in Tanzania is called ugali, U-G-A-L-I. Yes. And I describe it as salt dough. It is basically flour and water and a bit of salt, and you mix it in a pot to make kind of a salt dough consistency or Play-Doh consistency. I did not particularly enjoy it. They seemed to really like it though, which is great because that's what they do. The meat was often cooked or killed pretty freshly, which was nice. We went into one church and there was a chicken on the floor. And we talked, and when we were finished, there was no chicken on the floor, and we had chicken for lunch. So we're like, oh, there we go. That's great. We also did some basic first aid with them, which went quite well, especially after they realised we were talking about when they're unconscious rather than when they're being asleep. We did. AICT are involved in loads of projects in the community. They do the health clinic, so they have volunteers in several communities going around daily to people's houses saying, do you need to go to a doctor? You are showing signs of HIV or typhoid or malaria. So this is us going to a community with HIV and praying with them. Because we were like, there's not a lot else we can do. We don't really have any medical skills at all. They also do Pamoja groups, which are self-help groups. Moja is one, and so it's kind of like one group, one community. And in that, you have a weekly meeting, and you give money, or you bring a little bit of your money each week, and that builds up to quite a big bond, and then you can take your money out, or you can take, you can borrow money as such from the group so some people use it to buy goats, so then they can sell on the goats and then do something with their house. And so that's a really good group. Then they also have CCMP groups, which are community church mobilization programs, I think, something around that. And that is, they get volunteers from the churches and the villages come out to Kita and are trained of what resources do you have in your town. You have, the lake, that's great, can you fish? You have this field, what could you do with it? And they also do a lot of agriculture and sustainable agriculture. So we went to see some of those programs. That's great.
If you could demonstrate, please.
Yeah, we can all that. So those are just two clips from the church, and I showed them. So the first one is a kids choir, and the second one is the adults choir. And choirs are a really important part of the church, and it's kind of a big selling factor of the church. And it's like, you go and you sing in the choir or dance in the choir. As you can see, their dancing is impressive. I did not have a go at that. I wouldn't have minded, but it was energetic. And so that is kind of maybe what would attract other people to a church. Oh, they have a great choir. Yes, that's where we want to go. I felt my experience of the country as a whole almost, it felt very 1950s, I think, in their kind of style of dress. So, not too low, not too short. In their beliefs, I would say, are a little more kind of 1950s style. And then the church services themselves were very long. It's about 3 hours. And then very, very loud. So along with the choirs, you get the whole sound system. And so even in these tiny village churches, where you may not have running water, you have like 4 or 5 speakers. In a room probably not much smaller than, about this size. I wouldn't say it's much different. So I feel I'm ready for, like, I don't know, any festival I go to or anything. It was loud. They did speak Swahili in church, which we had not really thought about before going. We've always gone to church, they speak English, you understand it, you go great, you go away, you come back next week. And they spoke Swahili, and we were just like, no, we don't understand any of it. We can't take any of it in. And we did have translators, who were very lovely, but because it was so loud, you couldn't hear them. So we often just read our Bibles. And so I think we did find that challenging, but we did, on a Monday, the 4 of us would have communion together between school classes, which was nice, and then later on we would work with, or we met some American missionaries who were over, and they did English church with us, which was very nice. They also have, so again, which I feel is quite 1950s, possibly because I go to this church where they don't do an offering. And I know they do offerings nowadays, not lots of churches. But they did one here, and there was just this expectation that you go and you give money in the offering. However, so in Tanzania, the money, you have 10,000 is equivalent to about £9, but probably has maybe what we could buy with £20. Like, it's a decent amount of money, but not huge amounts. 3,000 shillings is about £1, but at the bank, when you get money out, they only give it to you in 10,000s, and that's the biggest note they have. So if you're taking out about 100 quid, that's a lot. It's a good wad of money. which feels very nice, I must say. But then and then they have coins all the way down to 50 shillings, which is like at 0.0001p. It's a really tiny amount. But we found it really hard to get change, and so we just give 10,000s in the offering, when most people will give like 1,000 or 2,000. So we're really generous English people. That's great. So this is, next slide, this is one other thing we did. We went round to secondary schools and spoke to girls about female reproductive health. It's really important in this culture because they don't really talk about it. So they might not even know, like when they start their first period, why am I bleeding? Which, normally is not very healthy to just randomly bleed. So we were just we showed them kind of, this is what happens, this is basic puberty. And they were kind of dispelling myths such as they are often told if you get pregnant, that stops period cramps. We were like, well, for 9 months it does, but then not after that. And so we were telling them about that and kind of using this to empower them. And we were encouraging them, don't get married until after 18. The percentage is quite high. So I think we went to 4 or 5 different schools. One of them, like 8 girls had gotten pregnant last year. Another of them was like 40 girls. It was just ridiculous. And a lot of that is they just don't know, and if you tell them. And so I found that really useful. I think we also gave out these pads, because often in the Tanzania and countries around the world, they don't have anything for their period, and they'll use banana leaves, or in some places they'll use dried cow dung, which is not hygienic at all. And so we gave these out as a clean alternative way to use it. So we tried, and we taught them some self-defense, which they enjoyed a lot. And I found quite informing too. I think the culture is men are still very dominant and you are submissive to men if you're a woman. When you meet somebody, there's a lot of handshaking in Tanzania, which makes sense why there may be disease. But you shake hands, and if someone is more important than you, you do a little curtsy. And if you always curtsy to a man, or you go lower to them. If they're sitting down, you go really low. And you might curtsy to a woman if they are important, but there is still this men. I'm not equal to a man. I am submissive to a man, and that I think that just again fits into kind of the 1950s culture. But then on the other side, a lot of them have mobile phones, so it's a really weird kind of mix of old and modern. It feels like. Are there any more slides? Yeah. That's good. Yeah. So you can see. This was a really cool school. So we started off with about, I think, 80 girls, and then as we talked, we got up to like 200. They just kept coming through. That was really nice. And that's the end of the slide. Yeah. So I think I found it a really good experience. The girls I were with was lovely. Things I did find hard was, am I actually helping anybody? I'm taking 2 people out of their everyday jobs to take us to the village because we need a driver and a translator. Am I making a difference? Should I be making a difference? I'm only here for 3 months. What difference can I make? And I know I got a lot out of it. I think they may have found it kind of rewarding, or they liked it in the sense of, somebody, because they see white people as very important, very, they're educated, they have money, which compared to them, yes, we do have a lot of money. And so I think maybe they felt, this person who's traveled all this way, they must care about us. So I think that was how I thought about that one. It made me think, if I want to do something like this in the future, do I want to go to a community and spend years there, or do I want to go more global and not be involved with people directly, which I'm still not sure I'm resolved on, but that was my thoughts. As I've said, they were a really generous people. they, in the villages, they gave us rice and meat, which was a really special treat for them. They gave us the kangas. They're, so generous and so friendly. Yeah, and it was a really good experience. Do you have any questions?
Can you tell them about the little boy that talked about the size of your family?
Oh, yeah, so in the family sizes, so I would say 2 is fairly average for England. Maybe, 2, 3, 4 maybe, that's considered quite big. In there, you have 8, 9, 10 kids, and so they just think our families are tiny. And they're like, really? That's a family? There's not enough of you guys. Yeah. Is there any questions around?
What were the skies like?
The sky?
Like how big?
Oh, big. So I felt we were kind of in the valley, surrounded. I called them mountains. I think they were hills, but I felt they were quite mountainous. And so when you were getting up in the hills, you could see for miles. It was really, the weather, we were there in the wet season, but the weather was really like 25, 30 degrees most days. I would say it maybe rained 1 day a week. And when it did, it kind of would rain pretty heavily for morning, and then you get a sunny afternoon. So it's not that long rain. But I think there was, interestingly, a lot of talk about climate change and how the wet seasons are drier than normal because of climate change.
And were there lots of stars?
Stars, yeah, some nights it was really cool. You could see a lot. Yeah, lovely clear open skies. Yes?
It sounds like you've had some time to reflect on what your contribution was and what you had taken away. And I wondered, Ellen, that was just fantastic, lovely to hear what your, whether there was a lasting thing that you had a perspective shift, if you like, through the experience that you had, that you think, actually, I won't ever see, hear, feel in the same way about something because of the experience that you've had. Is anything like that?
One of the things I found interesting was like waste. And so over here you have, most people compost and recycle, and you do different recycling for different things and put it in different places. And where we were, they had, it's called the pit. It was a big hole in the ground. They took all their waste, they put it in the pit, and then they burn it about once a week. And that's fine for them because it's banana skins and it's fruit and it's compostable material. But then we brought plastic with us because we had, to cover our toothbrushes and plastic bags and all that stuff. And so we put that in the pit because we didn't know we burnt it for a while. And so then there's like, oh, they're burning plastic, and their kind of idea of waste is just a bit different because so I went on a walk with a family up the mountain, it's a hill, and she finished her plastic water bottle and threw it away. And I'm like, and it was an 8-year-old, and probably 8-year-olds here would do that, and we just go, no, you don't do that. But then their parents do that as well. It's not quite the same as it is here because they haven't been taught, oh, that is, about damaging the environment. They don't, because they do have other things to worry about in the way we don't.
How did the stuff on female health go down? How was it accepted and things?
Yeah, so we did think, when we get sex ed in year 6, year 7, you don't really want to respond. You look at the books, you don't really think about it, and you don't ask questions. At least I did not. But they seemed quite interested, and they did. Of course, some of them were a bit more shy, but some of them asked some really good questions, like, does your diet affect it? Does how heavy your period is, or what happens with your period? Is it normal not to have a period for 2 months or something? And so some of them did respond really well, which we didn't think they would, which was nice.
Who was supporting you while you were out there? So was it mainly like just people in children's homes?
Oh, okay. So we went with Tear Fund, and they are partnered with AICT. And our main guy over there was called Timoth, And he was great. He really got English culture. He was really good at English. And so he was kind of our go-to guy. So when we were like, we've got cockroaches, we told him. We've got a mouse, we told him. But he was quite a high-up guy in the church, and so would oversaw his kind of like colleagues who organised with us day to day. So we had 2 or 3 people. So we had Kafa, and he took us around the villages and translated. We had Lois, who took us for the health project, and we had Anid, who did a bit of the village work as well. So we did have set people.
Did you see lots of Bibles in action? And then they have lots of access to Bibles.
They seem to have a fair amount.
Tell them about Bible in the Head.
That was a great game. I would say in Gator, most people at church had a Bible. In the children's home, they had a lot of Bibles and would use them quite a bit. In the villages, I think they were rarer, but you'd still have them. But the problem in the villages is you might not be able to read. And so you'd probably have, your minister would have the Bible.
Was there any, were you told about, or did you witness sort of any other non-Christian faiths? Or did it feel like everyone was Christian and that was how it was in your area? Or?
The area we were in, I'm not sure what the split was, but you'd have Muslims and Christians, and so we could hear the call to prayer in the morning at 5 a.m. We got better at sleeping through that, and so you'd see a mix of people with Muslims and Christians, and coming from Hexham, that pretty much everyone is Christian or no religion, I would say. So it is a bit different. People talked a little bit about witch doctors, but I didn't see any of that really. So I'll explain Bible on the Head. I think it's a bit like the game we played when you did Sunday school with kind of unsheathing it. But you put the Bible on the head, and then someone says a verse, and the first person to find it and read it wins. And I felt I had to hold back because they were kids. But I'm really excited to play with adults. If anyone wants to play. So it was a good game, I liked it.
Sorry, Anna, would you, if you were recommending to people younger than you or anyone else who was thinking about kind of going to do something like this with Tear Fund or with someone else or whatever, are there any recommendations you'd give in terms of thinking about it or things you've learned that out of the process?
I think it's a really good thing to do if you are thinking about it. I would encourage, it's a time commitment, it's a bit of a money commitment, but it was, it's really good. You got to see another culture in a different part of the world, and I think it made the world feel smaller, because I've been to Africa now. It took 24 hours, but it takes 24 hours to get to America. It's close. I think thinking about it is, I think I didn't so much, but the other girls did find it quite hard being away from home without your family. They were really great and really lovely, which worked really well in the group. But maybe thinking a bit, can I be away from home? I was okay, and I did have Wi-Fi, or I had 4G, so I could text most days and go, what's going on? Lots of things have still happened, which I've not been told about. But that kind of thing. We wrote a list of practical things, such as, so we had to hand wash the clothes, so they did provide soap, but kind of mentally prepared for that. We were kind of stuff, sometimes it is hard to know, like we didn't think about the church being in Swahili, or it being a cold shower, or I didn't think about there was a squat toilet, and I did not think about that. It was a kind of nice squat toilet, because it was porcelain. It was a bit weird, I thought. But yeah, I would really, if you're thinking about it, I would encourage it. It's really good.
Well, that's all we've got time for this week. Thank you very much for that, Ellen. There will be time afterwards though, because we'd like to finish at 6:15 then on the dot, so that we keep our promise. Stop there. If you've got any questions to Ellen, do have a word with her afterwards. We're here every Sunday at 4 o'clock for point one, at 4:45 we eat, 5:30 we have another session like this, and there's lots of different things that we do, so you'd be welcome anytime. Check out our website. Before we go, there's one thing I would ask of you that I'd like to do. You don't have to take part if you don't want to, but we're going to a special church event. Dan and I are going to, and Mike and Debbie are going to an event in Oxford this week, and one of the things we're doing is talking about what we've done in the last 6 months since we were last there. And one of the things we said was that we'd work on our mission statement and get everybody in the church to learn it. So I'm not asking you to learn it now, but what I'm going to do is going to video you, if that's all right. If you don't want to be part, just keep your head down, because you're the witness protection scheme, look this way. But if you could read it out for me, that'd be great, because then I can show this to all the guys on Wednesday, and tell them that they've learned it. So let's have a practice. Passionate about God and imaginatively engaging people in becoming who He created us all to be. Go. Passionate about God and imaginatively engaging people in becoming who He created us all to be. One more time. Passionate about God and imaginatively engaging people in becoming who He created us all to be. Brilliant. You'd think you'd learn that off by heart. That's fantastic. Well done. Thank you so much. I'll say a quick prayer to finish. Thank you, God, that you are God all over the world. Thank you that you are God here and in Tanzania. Thank you for all the people Ellen has interacted with and all that she's learnt and taught. And thank you for everybody here who's listened today. In Jesus' name, Amen. Thank you for coming, and see you again.